this whole virtual booth thing is for helping develop new companies
and SEO at the same time, and you need to have a good website. You have to invest in all those things because that's what the customer is going to see first.
Excellent. So are you? It looks like you're upstairs.
IAAPA. Everybody waiting to go down.
Yeah, point your camera. Yeah.
Can y'all see it?
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
For anybody who's never been here, this is pretty awesome when you first get to see the floor on the escalators.
Yeah, this is it.
This is it.
So did they open the doors yet?
They are fixing to. It's time and everybody's waiting. I mean, we're inside. We're just waiting to go down the escalators.
Excellent. Well,
So, yeah.
It'll be a mad rush to get on those escalators. They usually keep people off the stairs, and then I can see that they're kind of backed up waiting to go in right now.
Yeah, they've got us pretty backed up right now.
So did you get in yesterday or the day before?
We got in on Sunday, and they actually let us do our badge pickup on Sunday.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So did you go to the ERS thing last night at Senior Frogs?
We did. We went to Senior Frogs last night, and then tomorrow we will be going, or tonight we'll be going to Andretti's.
Excellent. Well, be careful, you know.
I will.
Jim Edmonds got wrapped around a...
Yeah, you good?
Yeah, 2 minutes where y'all can see what's going on here.
Yeah, they're just saying hi. Come on.
Yeah. All right. So, Chanda, we got Richard Clark here.
Hey, Richard, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good.
Awesome. This
So,
place is insane so far. So I'm excited to see everything and meet people and stuff. So
there you go.
I definitely chose the right door here. Inflatables.
Yep. Looks like it. So, Richard, we've got you on today. We're going to talk about AdWords.
okay.
And you've been kind of like the go-to guy in the groups this year and in previous years, as you know, you got your Google. What is that? A Google certification or a tech certification that you've got?
Yeah. So I've done a couple different things in the tech space. I did a little bit of coding, so I do have some certifications in that. But also, I am Google Ads certified. Been that way for a few years now, several years now. Yes, it's something that I actually enjoy, as nerdy as that is.
No, I understand it completely. That's I make my living at it too. So, I mean, I love it. I you know, when years and years ago, when I first started, you know, learning how to do websites and stuff like that, I was always amazed that you could just write a little line of code and then see something really cool happen on the page. It was like magic, you know?
Yeah, it is pretty cool. Like the little bit of coding that I do know, it's awesome to see, like you said, like how you can just do a lot of things. People will be surprised how many things you can do with just some simple lines of code. It's pretty cool.
What, baby?
So, Chanda,
Yes.
where are you going first?
I'm fixing to go to the inflatables. I have my
Okay.
crew with me today. You can see my little crew here, and they
Excellent.
found balls.
Excellent. So I'm going to get into this with Richard here for a little bit and check back in with us when you get to something that's really cool. Okay.
I will do. We'll talk to y'all later. Y'all have a good
Great.
day.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.
The reason why I wanted to talk to you today was because my research with my clients, and I've got a lot of clients that are real heavy AdWords users. And a few years ago, I started realizing that when you look at like the analytics and the reports about how traffic is coming in and stuff of that nature, you realize that, wow, we're getting these guys that are heavy users of AdWords. They're getting all this traffic coming in, and it actually started to supersede all of the organic traffic, you know, to the point of like where, wow, you know, I started getting this gut feeling. And so I think it was probably 2 years ago. I can't remember when the last ERS con was there. I think you were there for that. And I was talking about the fact that if you are missing out on, you know, AdWords, because a lot of people say, well, I don't want to pay for advertising and stuff like that. They're missing out on a ton of traffic, the highest percentage of traffic. So is that something that you're finding too?
Yeah, so you know, Google's the #1 search engine for sure. Everyone knows that.
Mm-hmm.
And the majority of what Google does. The majority of their money comes from ad traffic, right? So even on their YouTube platform or whatever, it comes from ads. So what Google has done has made ads more and more prevalent on the search. So when you go to search, it used to be, maybe there's one ad and then a whole bunch of organic searches. Now Google's doing 3, 4 ads, then the maps that have ads in them, and then the organic results. So before you see the first organic result, you're halfway down the page. So ads are becoming more and more prevalent on the Google platform for sure.
Yeah, 2/3 of the page are occupied by Google Ads and by the Google Map or Google My Business. And then one of the things that I looked into, I started saying, well, somebody had to do like a heat map or some kind of research study on how people are using this. And during that process, I found an interesting research study on the Google search pages. And the most important thing that I found is that, the majority of people that use Google search make their decision in their first click within 9 seconds. It's incredible. Okay. And then when you look at the rest of the statistics, I'm going to just share some numbers here with you. Only 9% of the people ever get to the bottom of the first search page. I mean, when you look at that universe that are using Google, that's an incredibly small amount of people. Hold on, I got to mute some people here. Let me get not you. Mute. Sorry about that, boss. So as a result, it does even more. And the same study showed that, 60%, well, actually the biggest percentage of people that are clicking in the map, especially and this is a lot of this is focused on targeted local searches, right?
Yes.
And that's really our business. When we're in the event rental business, it's all local type searches. That's why Google My Business and AdWords are so important. 25% of the people are clicking on the Google ads. And then you got the 42% of people that are clicking on the map. So where does that leave you? That means over 60% of the folks never get past those 2 sections of the organic results.
Yeah. And I think that's going to keep coming up too. I think Google's going to keep driving more ads. If they can fit 6 ads, maybe the first page is all ads. I don't think that Google's going to, of course, that's their bread and butter is money from revenue from ads. So I don't think they're going to move away from that. People do need to understand that ads are very important. And then what happens next is also important, of course.
Yeah, it changes the game quite a bit, because it used to be SEO was king. If you weren't like at the top of the organic pages, you could forget about it. In fact, this study here that we're looking at right now is less than 1% of people ever get past the first page of results.
Yeah.
The market is such that, it's impatience. I want to know what I want to see what I want, and I want you to show it to me as fast as possible, especially with people doing this on their mobile devices. Let me ask you this: when you approach an AdWords client, how do you approach your layout of the campaigns? Do you do multiple campaigns or do you do general campaigns? What's your focus when you're trying to introduce somebody to AdWords?
So because Google puts so much weight on quality score, I focus directly on separating. I go campaign by their business name, and then I separate ad groups because if you just put everything kind of in the same box, mm-hmm. and somebody types in bounce house rental, right? Mm-hmm. And then for whatever reason, because you have all your ads together, your water slide ad pops up or your dunk tank ad pops up, but the person above you or below you, their bounce house ad pops up. The customer's going to click on what most likely meets their search. So if they typed in bounce house rentals and they see bounce house rentals, they're going to click on that, even though your business is the same as theirs. Your ad said dunk tank. So you want to put all of the ads by category, keep them together, make it nice and clean, get that quality score up. So that way we're taking the customers to what they want to see. They said water slides, they said bounce houses. Let's take them directly to the water slide or bounce house that they asked for. And you can even go down to a little bit more of a breakdown. If they say Princess Bounce House, take them to your Princess Bounce House, because they don't need to see all of your bounce houses. They specifically said Princess. Let's take them to the Princess Bounce House.
And the other thing that has really, and this is probably more in the last couple of years, is the Google presentation of the ads. The presentation of a Google ad is so much better than an organic listing, because you've got the capability of using all those extensions in the ad. Now, why don't you tell us about how your strategy is for using the AdWords extensions?
So with extensions, I try to use extensions both at the company level and at the category level. What I mean by that is, so the company level, like if they're just searching for like something like party rentals, I want to show them a little bit of everything we have. I want to show them that we have combos. I want to show them that we have dunk tanks. I want to show them that we have water slides all in one. But if they're searching for water slides, I want to show them that I have a 15-foot water slide. I want to show them that I have 18-foot water slide. So I break it down even more specific using those site link extensions. You can also use extensions. You can also use extensions for, sorry about that.
That's okay.
You can also use extensions. You can also use extensions for, lost my train of thought with that phone call came in. So you can use extensions for things like call outs. You can use extensions for time of day. If you're a place where people come to pick up, you can use location extensions. Google has image extensions in a lot of accounts. They're supposed to roll it out for everybody. So if you have a certain item, like a really nice water slide, have a really good photo of it. You could show your water slide photos as well. You can show photos and extensions. So there's a lot of things you can do with extensions that are really awesome. Call outs, things like, hey, we're insured, we're inspected, we clean and sanitize, especially in this environment.
Right.
There's a lot of really cool things you can do with extensions.
Well, are you using the structured data extensions much, where you can get into like types and things of that nature?
No, I don't really use those, just because a lot of the things that you see, like in the extension, like even like the call outs, like the call out extensions and the structured ones, there's not a lot of difference between them as far as what the customer sees. So like I try not to spend a lot of time doing that, more so spending a lot of time getting the customer to what they asked for. Mm-hmm. Because really customers don't really read beyond the first initial line, right? So there's a description in the ads you can put too that says everything, like we've been in business since 19 whatever, right? We've been in business since 2000. But customers don't really read past that. They read the first couple lines. Does this meet my search, what I'm looking for? And they click on it, or they move to the next one.
Are you finding that and I don't know how deep you go. Are you using Tag Manager, or are you using the reports actually in the account level?
So I do a couple different things. I use Google Analytics, I use Tag Manager, and I of course use the reports. I think all those things combined can kind of give you the best overall picture, because as we know, no matter how good your tags are, no matter how good your tracking is, there's some things that just don't go right in Google 100% of the time. So to have all that information together is pretty good. Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing, when people are, well, let me restructure this. When people are clicking on the ads, do you think they're clicking the primary final link, or are you using the links, the additional links in the extensions? Like when you're at the company level, like your company level ads, right? You might have extension links for like bounce houses, water slides, blah blah blah,
yes.
That kind of thing. Do you have any kind of feel for how those are being used, or if it's just taking up space? Because one of the concepts or strategies that I used to like to use is just make that ad as big as you can possibly get it, because it pushes people out of the space, if you've got a good presentation.
So when it comes to like how I'm tracking like the links and stuff, you can track all those links. Like for me, it's more important to track to see, are they clicking on the ad and are they converting? Mm-hmm. And I do think the more information you give Google, the more information that they'll use to create your ad. And like you said, they'll make your ads bigger. So if you're using all the extensions that you can, if you're giving it all the data, whether the customers read it or not, you still want to put some of that stuff in there. Mm-hmm. And you want to make that ad as big as possible, because a lot of times if you go to Google and search something right now, there might only be one ad up there.
Right.
And it'll have a ton of information in that ad, but there's only one ad. And then sometimes you'll search and there may be 4 ads, but they'll be really small. So the more information you give Google, the more they can use it. And they will use it if you give them enough information to do so, for sure.
Yeah. And why don't you talk a little bit, because I have my feelings about this, but I want to hear what you have to say about it, because I think AdWords is like a must for a new startup. It's just a must. It's the only way that they can get their face up on page one. Yeah. Are you having trouble when you're talking to a new guy that's just starting up his business? He's got his first website going, and you're saying, look, dude, you gotta do AdWords. And they say, well, yeah, but that's like $400 a month, or something like that. How's that conversation going?
Yeah, so I can speak from 2 different points. One as a person that's selling it, and then one is my situation. When I first started this business, I was in a super, super competitive market, probably one of the most competitive in the country.
Yep.
From a couple different things. One, we all know him, Jeremy Thrillkill, Kobus, Jeff Roberts from Austin Bounce House Rentals,
Austin Bounce House,
William Gann. There was probably and some of the guys that have Kevin Baldry, who left the industry, and a couple other guys. Yeah. There was like 12 to 15 legit insured companies. Yeah. And some of these guys like Jeremy and some of these other guys were really, really good at digital marketing and SEO and type of stuff. They at least knew what they were doing or how to find the people to do it for them, right? So I had to compete in that market as a new company, and I wanted to be taken serious. So the only way I could do it was AdWords. Yep. And so from that point, I try to tell people all the time, invest. I'm still I survive today in the market that I'm in because I used AdWords, because that's where most of my business came from, was AdWords. Mm-hmm. And then I'll tell new clients, you need to invest in AdWords and SEO at the same time, and you need to have a good website. You have to invest in all those things, because that's what the customer is going to see first. And if you don't invest in ads up front, you're going to be behind the 8 ball trying to catch up on SEO, which takes a long time. Even if you have a really good SEO person, it's going to take 6 to 8 months to start seeing some real good traction. And by that point in this business, that could be too late before you're like, hey, I'm done with this, and I lost too much money this year or whatever. So
right. Yeah. So when you do get a new client, and this probably gets into another level of this, but one of the things that I would do is try to have a conversation with the clients about their site conversion rate. Because I firmly believe that, you could have the greatest ad campaign in the world, but if your site's not going to convert, the campaign's only going to convert as well as the website convert, because basically what you're doing is paying people to come to your website rather than doing it organically. Yeah. So do you ever have discussions with the new clients about, well, I can do this, and because it always comes down to money, right? They're going to say, well, how much is this going to cost me? And a conversion rate on an ad campaign becomes a critical thing with somebody that's just starting out, because, well, the numbers are big and it can be kind of scary when they don't understand what's going on. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's one thing that even myself, I need to do a better job of communicating. When it comes to ads or even organic results, and the best thing that anybody can do for themselves is have a really good website. Mm-hmm. Have a clean call to action when they get to the website. We can have anything on our website that draws attention, gets people to click on it. You could have a phone number up there, whatever, right? You can have all these things that are the latest and greatest. But at the end of the day, if your website is not clean, if your website is not written well, if the pictures don't look right, if it doesn't render well on a different device, people are not going to convert. They're not. And the best way to describe it is, like, if you're driving in a city you've never been and you see a hotel or motel, you need somewhere to stay. If it looks run down when you first get there, you're probably not going to stay there. You're probably going to go to the place that looks okay when you get there. So you got to kind of treat it the same way. Your website needs to be your best presentation of yourself from the very beginning. And that will drive more conversions than anything that I can do on Google AdWords, or anything that any other software can do for you, your website will do more of the work for sure.
How often now, for me, I think that people try that, especially when they're spending money, and I'm trying to focus, if you haven't get caught onto this yet, I'm trying to focus for the new guy, right? Because we both know that we got our sophisticated customers that get it, that understand the numbers and what's going on. My goal for this whole virtual booth thing is for helping develop new companies that are just figuring it out. I was just amazed in the last couple of weeks this year, of the posts on there, like, what's IAAPA and why should I go,
Yeah.
and the same thing goes with AdWords, the confusion of AdWords, pay-per-click versus AdWords SEO, the difference between there and how that, understanding those two entities changes things for a website. Do you talk about an expected ROI or what they should do, what they should expect when they first start advertising? And this is a loaded question, I'm sorry, so you can do this in parts if you want. But obviously the question about how much should I spend, right? And then also the idea of how often should I check into it? A lot of people, they're spending, $100 a day, $500 a day, things of that nature. They're going, I want to know what's going on. So they're looking at their reports on a daily basis and they're freaking out because, one day you can have a high level of click through and no conversions. And then the next day you could have a ton of conversions and very low numbers on the click-through rate. So how do you go about talking to a client about that return on investment versus expectations, and how long do they have to play to go for changes?
Yeah, so that's kind of hard. That's kind of a weighted question a little bit because it's kind of hard to say, right? Because everybody's website's different. Like, I've been to websites that are people that are brand new, and you can look at them and you're like, hey, this is going to be a little tougher because you only have so many items and your website's not where it should be. And then I've been to websites that look amazing. They have hundreds of items. So I usually tell people, in general, Google says $3 to every dollar you spend is a pretty good return, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a pretty average return for all industries across the whole platform. That's what Google says is the average, right? So then you kind of go from there and say, like, hey, we should at least if we're a new company starting out, we want to at least break even. And when I say break even, I mean you're taking into consideration your payroll. So if you're a new company and you've never and you don't have employees and you're doing all the deliveries on yourself, you got to take in consideration like your overhead costs as well, right? Because return on investment within ads, yes, you're spending money for ads, but you also got to take into your costs when you're figuring out your final, how much money you actually made from revenue. Because if you send out one bounce house and it costs you $50 in clicks to get that one bounce house rented, and then you paid $40 for a guy to go drop it off and pick it back up, now are you really making any money at that point on your Google ads from that click? So you got to take all those things into consideration. I think it's really important to get really deep into those things. But overall, I try to tell people, hey, we can get your ads in front of the right people. We can see what's going on. We can see if they're taking the next step, whether that's filling out a form, clicking on a pop-up or whatever, or are they booking it. We can see what they're doing and then see what we have to do to get more of that traffic to the right spot to go further down that process. Because the end result is we don't want them just necessarily fill out a form. When I want somebody to come to my website, I want them to convert right then. Yeah. So what do I need to do to make my website better, to make it clear that, one, answer all your questions and make it clear this is how we go to the booking process. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that's missed in talking to new clients is they think that, oh, I have a website that you can book on and you're sending people to my page, so that it should happen so easily. Right? That's not quite true, because I mean you've seen dozens of websites where people have their first call to action halfway down the website, or like even on my website right now I have this horrible click for availability that I just haven't had time to fix, and I know it's awful, right? And this is what I do, and I know it's awful, and it flashes too much, and it doesn't render the right way. but I know that it's a problem. But I want my clients to know how to get to fix those things, how to make those things better, how to get to the right people to make those things look good so they're really clean. And the customer, their customer, knows, okay, if I click here, I can check the calendar and see if my item's available. And then I can add it to the cart and I can check out right now. And I don't need to text anybody and I don't need to call anybody, and I can do it myself. If you show customers that they can do that, they're more likely to do that if this is what their intentions were to purchase in the first place.
Yeah, and I think also the other part of that, and this is from my perspective as a developer, is how you ask for that CTA, or the call to action, right? If you're addressing those needs from the perspective of an owner, right? Click here to book, right? Or like with our Hero CTA app that we've had, it's like, well, find what you're looking for fast. Just enter in your date and time. You can see everything that's available. It's you're getting to the same place, right? You're getting them to start a shopping cart, get their date and time. You're getting them to invest, right? And it's just the way that you ask for that feedback from them. Getting back to the second part of my question is evaluation of the campaign. My personal thoughts is that, man, I got to see at least 2 weeks of data to, really get a good feel for how that campaign's working. How much time do you think is important to allow something to work? Because a lot of times you'll see somebody, I just spent $100. I want to know what I got. Right. And it's like, you need to let that cook for a bit, right? You got to let the pot stew, and then in a couple of weeks you can kind of see some trends going on. What do you think about that, and what's your evaluation process for modifying anything on the campaign?
So that's actually kind of a two-part question actually for me to answer. So the first part would be, I think 2 weeks is a good time to go back in there and see what happened and make adjustments based off of what I know about Google AdWords and what I know about the industry. But I would say about 3 months of running a campaign is enough time for Google to really learn what's going on, to really learn what the customers are doing for that client. And then they'll start making some adjustments, but they'll start making some suggestions that could be good or could be for Google, who knows? But they'll start putting your ads in front of people that are more likely to book if you give them the right adjustments on your own. Like you have to go in there after the first 2 weeks and keep making these slight adjustments, telling Google, hey, Google, this is what I want you to look at. And then after about 3 months, there's enough machine learning to where Google can kind of drive it a little bit more for you. I still would never give Google complete control. But 2 weeks is when I would say is when I personally want to go back in there and see kind of what's going on. And when I start to expect to see some more clicks, some more conversions, and I can give the client a better idea of what's happening. And you're right. Some people will panic when they spend that first, couple $100 and they don't really see a lot of conversions. And I think people also need to put into perspective the time of the year that they're running ads. So if you ask me to set up ads for you right now and you want to be completely booked out in the middle of November and December, that's just not realistic, right? For any area, there's not very many people that are booked out in November and December. And then if you ask me to set up ads in June through the first couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden you're booked out every weekend because of the 4th of July is coming up, and you want those same results after the 4th of July, that's not really realistic either. Like, there's times you want to follow the whole data, the whole big picture, and we're always gonna have peaks and valleys in our industry. So basing it off of what you see in 2 weeks is okay to make some adjustments, but not okay to set expectations.
Right. Just recently, I don't know if you've seen this, but I happened to stumble across it on YouTube, and I saw this young conservative guy, Ben Shapiro, sat down with Eric Schmidt, one of the former CEOs. He hasn't been with Google for a number of years now, but they were talking about, and you just brought it up with what you're talking about, machine learning or AI, artificial intelligence. And one of the things that I have been seeing is that, in fact, the whole format to way they do the campaigns now on AdWords versus the way it was, 5-6 years ago, is totally based on them gathering the data that they need for the machine learning or AI. And Schmidt was talking about is that over the next few years, of course, this is going to be beyond my time, but you're a much younger guy than I am. So it's going to be in your time is how more prevalent the machine learning is going to be in this ad campaign construction, that goes. One of the problems I had with Google early on, before they started realizing that the party rental business was actually a big, huge segment across the country, was that they didn't understand the business at all. They tried to plug in all this automatic stuff, kind of like we were selling, crazy T-shirts on an impulse buy. But in our industry, this isn't an impulse buy. This is a very big ticket item. People are thinking about it. They're looking at the reviews. They're reading all the stuff. Contrary to the popular belief of a lot of party rental owners that think that nobody ever reads anything. How do you think they're doing now these days with their machine learning in terms of anticipating conversion? Because I'm going to let you answer that, because then I want to get into bid strategies or our click-through strategies for allowing Google to make decisions for us.
Yeah, so I think Google's trying really hard to do a lot of good things when it comes to, like, I guess they call it like smart campaigns or automated campaigns where they kind of take over. But the problem is with our industry, like when you say things like party or whatever, that can mean a lot of different things, right? Yep. Like we're in the event industry. We're trying to, obviously our space is a little wide, but when you say things like party and stuff for Google and they can tie those things together, they're still not quite there. They're getting better. So I still think that they're doing a much better job of anticipating getting the ads in front of the right person, that this person's most likely to convert. But there's still a ways to go because our industry is too wide and not everybody fits in that same space. Not everyone fits in the same box. Like I don't have a ton of event pieces, so my clientele is not even going to be the same as somebody else in my own city. Like they have bigger event pieces, so they're going to want to go after those type of customers. And Google doesn't understand that portion of our business yet. So that's why I think it's important for us to still kind of take control. And I think you asked some questions about like bidding strategies.
Yeah, I was gonna let you finish your thought there, but yeah, and obviously when you're setting up a campaign, you've got a multitude of selections there for conversions, clicks, app downloads, all this crazy stuff, right? How do you think the job Google's doing with the maximize conversion settings? In other words, do you really think that they understand what a conversion is for a party rental website? And what's your preferences when you get into that strategy?
So I'm still a big fan of using manual bidding strategies. I still don't like giving Google the will per se to do things like maximize conversions or maximize clicks or target impression share. Yeah. Anything like that, because I still believe that Google doesn't know what a conversion is, and even if they do know what a conversion is on somebody's website, what I consider a conversion and what my competitor considers a conversion can be two different things. Mm-hmm. Some people might be okay with just sending out a quote and following up with a customer. I particularly don't like to keep calling customers and text customers and following up. I want them to book. That's why I got a software that does it for me. And then some people might be okay, texting or filling out a form or whatever, and they might count those as conversions. And I guess in a way those are conversions because that's what you wanted the customer to do. But are those a valuable conversion to every client? Maybe, probably not. I know not for me. Mm-hmm. The conversions that I care about are people that call and are on the phone with me for more than 60 seconds, and people that book directly on my website. Now I will get into some counting of conversions when it comes to forms or text messages or whatever. I'll do it like as a fraction. So if I know that I close 10% or 20% of all my form fills, then I'll say, okay, this only counts as a tenth of a conversion. So I'll give Google that type of information so they can get better at recommending some things for my account, but I still won't let them take it over for me specifically,
Right.
and most of my clients. So
yeah, I think that that's a great policy because, you know, from the way that they've structured the new ads, you know, just dashboard, everything seems to and you can't blame them. Let's face it, they make their money on clicks. They don't make money on your conversions. But I think in our industry, it's really important to remember that we're here to make money. So the only conversion I care about is the one that makes me money.
yeah,
Although I do think that counting phone calls is probably valuable. Because like you say, you know, if you get somebody on the phone, you can talk to them, you know, you can generally get a really good feel for how many of those phone calls you're going to convert to a customer on the spot. So,
yeah.
you know, I don't believe in giving that any value, but in terms of evaluating the performance of the campaign, I think it's important to have at least some kind of metric there based on, you know, their ability to close a phone call. So I'm going to wrap this up here with you because we're going to be moving on here. We're going to go see Tony Atwell at Titan Inflatables here in a few minutes. Do you know Tony?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So how do people get in touch with you, Richard, if they want to do this?
So they can definitely find me on Facebook. They can now find me at ERS, Richard Clark at ERS. I mean, at Event Rental Systems, at Event Rental Systems.
Yeah.
I'll be at IAAPA all week at the ERS booth, so I'd definitely like to talk to some people. Any questions about Google, if they want me to check out their Google account, I'd be more than happy to. So always available on Facebook as well.
Excellent. Well, you did a great job, man. Thanks. You got
Thank
a lot
you.
of-
Yeah, and there's so much stuff going on around me. It's so hard to
It's
focus
distracting.
in one spot.
Yeah.
There's so many people. People need to come check this out for sure.
All right, man. Well, go have a great day, and I hope you just knock them dead.
All right, you take care.
See ya. Bye.